everybody. So I am in the middle of filming a tutorial for a basic Lolita skirt, and I realized that I should probably do an entirely separate video about specifically how to shop for fabrics and trims for Lolita clothing. So I'm going to start out with fabric, and there's like a big range of stuff you can use and a big range of stuff you should probably avoid. So I'm going to start out with stuff you should avoid. The biggest thing for people who are just starting out is to avoid things that are really shiny. Any sort of satins are probably not the best idea, and especially like cheap costume satin is really gross, so don't do that. And, you know, like pleather and vinyl and that's it. Anything shiny is a bad plan, probably. And mostly that's because it's not commonly used in Lolita, and also because for a lot of beginners, especially people who aren't familiar with fabric shopping, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference between like a nice quality satin and a bad quality satin, because it all kind of looks very similar, especially when it's not photographed. Flash photography makes good and bad satin really obvious. But anyway, you know, it's hard to tell the difference between good stuff and bad stuff, especially at your like general like Joann's fabric store kind of thing, when there's like a range of good and bad stuff and it's like all right next to each other. So yeah, especially if you're just starting out, I would avoid anything shiny whatsoever. And that's not to say that you can't ever use anything with some sheen to it. Like cotton sateen is pretty common for more classic brands to use. One of Alice and the Pirates, I think. Have that Beauty and the Rose promise dress that's got that nice sheen to it, and I believe some of Juliette Justine's dresses do as well. So it's not to say that like it never ever happens, but if you're just starting out, especially if you're new to buying fabric, I would avoid it. There's some other like general things to avoid, like there's really good feeling, really heavy velvets that they have like hanging in fabric stores. Don't do that. It's too heavy. It's not gonna work. It's gonna like smush your petticoat so bad you have no idea. And like, you know, gross crushed velvet stuff is not a good plan either. You know, anything super heavy upholstery weight is probably not good either. So yeah, those are just like general things to watch out for. They shouldn't be hard to avoid. There should be plenty of selection that does not include this fabric, so don't get nervous about being able to find something that you like. So the sorts of things you should be looking for are colors that make sense with Lolita, first of all. Don't go straight towards lime greens and oranges. That would probably be a bad plan. So it would be good to get a good idea of what sort of style you're wanting to make, and then the colors that are acceptable in that range of style. And you're going to want to look for a fabric that's medium weight, which means that it's like not super super heavy and not really really like light. So a lot of quilter's cotton falls in that range, and quilter's cotton does vary quite a bit in quality, but typically if you find a nicer print that you like, or Kone is a really good brand that makes nice quality quilter's cottons, are good to look out for. And you can also use lighter weight quilter's cottons if you're looking for something a little more casual, or if it's going to be summertime and you're going to be outside or something. So that's definitely an option. There are lots of other fabrics you can use though, besides just plain weave fabric sort of things. You can use some suiting I've seen work really well, some lightweight suiting. You don't want like super heavy suiting, but some lightweight suiting works well for some more classical styles. And lightweight corduroy or velveteen is really nice for winter time. Those sorts of things are a little bit more messy to sew, but they are totally like feasible. They're just gonna be fluffy things around. So just be aware of that when you're shopping. And some lighter weight upholstery fabrics actually work pretty well, like not necessarily like upholstery fabrics, home decor fabrics I should say, work pretty well for winter time, as long as they've got a nice drape to them. You don't want to get anything that's too stiff because it's just going to look awkward. But something lighter weight in the home dec section wouldn't be a terrible idea. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about trim next, and trim is kind of complicated. So I'll start out with other types of trim, and then I'll move on to lace, because lace is the most important and most confusing. So, okay, I'm going to start out with this. This is rickrack. I'm sure you've seen it in, like, craft projects as a kid. But sweet brands do use this. Angelic Pretty is pretty notorious for putting rickrack on their stuff. What they do most of the time, instead of just using it as is and sewing along it, they'll take, here, use this notepad for an example. They'll take it and they'll sew it right in the hem, so you just see little, I don't even know what to call those. Just like half of it, essentially. And normally they do this on, like, tiered skirts. They'll do it as trim on that, or sometimes they'll use it on their, like, more nautical sailor type things. So yeah, that's rickrack. Also, this is very shiny rickrack. I don't know that I'd use that personally. That's just what I had in my stash. So yes, this stuff is like, I don't know how well you can see that detail. There we go. This stuff is like upholstery trim, like braid or cord. And this stuff is really great for more classic and gothic looks, because it looks kind of more sophisticated. Brands like Mary Magdalene use this a lot on ruffles that they have applied like over the edge of fabric rather than attaching it to the bottom. I don't know if that description made much sense. I'll do a link in the bottom to show you what I'm talking about, because it's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, that stuff's really nice, and a lot of fabric stores have quite a good selection of that, but it will be separate from the other trim. It's typically in the actual home decor section, rather than being in with, like, you know, the ribbons and lace and stuff like that. This is pom-pom trim. Pom-pom! I love this stuff. It's so ridiculous. This is mostly used by sweet brands as well. And you just, you know, sew it on the hem of whatever you're doing. This is the sort of stuff that you want to be a little bit careful with, because you don't want to put this on everything, because you'll look ridiculous. But I think especially in more like kitschy, circusy sorts of prints, this looks really, really cute, just along a hem. Or with polka dots. Looks really cute with polka dots, because it's little circles. Ah, it's a thing. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about ribbon, and then lace. Okay. So this is satin ribbon, and this is the shiny side, and this is the more matte side. Typically satin ribbon has two sides, some doesn't, some does. It just depends on where you buy it, but most of the time if you buy it in a craft store, it'll have a good side and a bad side, essentially. And satin ribbon is good to use with discretion, like pom-pom trim and rickrack. Yes. I think it looks really nice in some bows on things, and I think it looks nice in hair and stuff like that, but you do want to be really careful about how much you use it and where you use it. So if you're just starting out sewing, I would be a little cautious with this. It also looks really nice in beading lace, which I will talk about a little later, but that's an excellent way to use it, especially if you're just starting out and you're not really sure how to go about using this sort of ribbon. And this stuff, well, this stuff is printed, but it's grosgrain ribbon. The easiest way to tell it's grosgrain, I don't know if you can see this. You can kind of see it. There's these little grain lines to it. It's like kind of got a texture to it. And also it's completely matte. Like there's no shininess to it. I love this stuff. I got this in particular at Hobby Lobby, in case you're curious. But grosgrain is a really good for particularly sweet styles, I would say. I see it used most often, but I do see it on classic stuff and occasionally on gothic stuff, so it's not like specifically sweet, but I see it used most there. But grosgrain is great because it's cheap, it's easy to find, and I can guarantee you it won't look gross, whereas sometimes satin ribbon looks gross. So if you're just starting out, I would especially go for grosgrain ribbon, and you probably don't want anything quite this big. I use this for hair accessories and stuff. You know, when you're using ribbon, you want to be aware of proportions, and it's a good idea to use like an inch wide or less, unless you're making like specific accessories, I would say. So yeah, those are ribbon, and now we're gonna move on to lace. Okay, so lace is a big deal in Lolita. It's very, very important, obviously, because we put it on absolutely everything, and sometimes we put lace on our lace, on our lace, on our heads, and it's just, it's important to know about the different types of lace, first of all, and second of all, about lace quality. So I made this little thingy. I made it for my panel last year at Animation, and to pass around and show people. It's basically a little guide about how to tell the difference between good and bad lace, and also about what different kinds of lace look like. So sadly you can't touch this. I passed it around the panel so people could feel it, because that's the easiest way to tell good and bad lace. Bad lace feels really, really gross. It feels like plastic, it feels scratchy, it feels gross, like, you know when you were a kid and your mom put you in those dresses that you had to wear for, like, Christmas, and it had that lace on it and it itched like mad and you hated it? I think every little girl has that experience. It's that sort of lace. You don't want that sort of lace. So, okay, I'm gonna do my best to represent this to you without you being able to physically touch it. Okay, so we're gonna start out on this side. This is eyelet beading lace. So this little side has a little ribbon in it, which is how you want to do it. It drives me nuts. Nothing bothers me more than seeing handmade Lolita with beading lace that doesn't have ribbon in it. It looks so weird because there's just these like random little sets of holes. And basically you just weave the ribbon in and out. I can show you the back a little bit. Like that. So it has these cute little windows of color, and this is really nice if you just want to add a little bit of color to a dress, or if you're looking to bring out a color in a print that you're using. This is good quality stuff. It's not like stupendously spectacular, but this is totally okay to use. It's cotton, it feels nice, it's got a lot of give to it, so it's not like stiff or gross. So yes, this is good. I'll get a little close up on it so you can see it a little better. Okay, so this is Venice lace, and this stuff is good quality too. And Venice is normally best known for like very delicate work, like these has little roses and leaves and little trim. And it's used most often by classic brands, I would say. Classic and Gothic. And it's very delicate, it's got a lot of drape to it, it's very like pliable. And I wouldn't say necessarily that Venice lace is often very, very soft. It can be, but a lot of times because of the process to make the designs the way they are, it's not always like, you know, like super soft like a cotton would be. But yes, Venice lace, it's nice. This is Cluny lace. This particular Cluny lace isn't great quality, but there's a lot of really nice Cluny lace out there. So it's looks a little more like crocheted, if that makes sense. It's a little more textured, and it typically feels kind of cottony, if you're looking at good stuff. This can be a little bit more stiff than a couple of the others because the process to make it is just different, and so it doesn't have quite as much give. But yeah, this is a little more old school. I find that brands used to use Cluny lace a lot more than they do now. I don't know why. I think these days it's more common to have like custom printed eyelet and that sort of thing, so they don't do Cluny as much. But this is perfect if you're looking to sew something inspired by, you know, like older style Lolita. Okay, it's sad. Eyelet lace is really common to find, and I definitely recommend it for beginners because it's the easiest lace to figure out that it's not gross. Basically. This stuff is pink. Actually, I don't know if you can tell that. I got it from Hobby Lobby. I like the pink. That's cute. But it's essentially what it is they go through and they embroider actual cotton fabric and then they snip away the parts that they don't want. That's basically the process. So this stuff feels like fabric, basically. And a lot of it comes pre-ruffled, which is nice. You don't have to do any actual gathering yourself. Most of the time when lace is applied to a garment, it'll be gathered, but there are exceptions where it is applied flat. But it's nice to have the option of having it pre-gathered because gathering takes time and you're already doing enough gathering on ruffles and waist lines and everything else. So, yes, especially if you're a sweet Lolita. Eyelet's mostly used for sweet. But, yeah, it's a really good lace for beginners. Okay, and the last one we have is really gross. Okay, this is Rochelle lace. And Rochelle would be the lace that I would recommend for you to avoid as much as possible when you're just starting out, because it tends to be the crappiest in fabric stores. This stuff feels just, oh, it feels awful. And the quality is really crappy, like you can tell. There's like netting that hasn't been cut and stuff along here, and it's nasty. Anyway, so typically Rochelle is kind of similar to Eyelet, in which it's fabric that is embroidered on, and then stuff is cut away. Except for typically it's a lot more delicate, and it's done on like netting or tulle. Yeah, Rochelle is not all bad. I'm not saying that you can't buy it ever, but if you're just starting out, Rochelle tends to be the crappiest at fabric stores. If you really want Rochelle lace, I'd recommend searching online, because it's not easy to find nice stuff unless you go to like a really nice fancy fabric store. So yeah, this stuff is ugh. Basically, if you feel lace and it feels like plastic-y, I don't know if that's a great explanation. It's bad. And if it feels like fabric, then it's probably fine. And also, I should recommend that you should probably be careful about what colors you use for your trim. You don't want anything that's like super crazy. You know, like a lot of fabric stores sell like lime green lace. Don't use the lime green lace. Don't do it. Put it down. Walk away. You want to, if you're doing sweet, you probably want to go for a white lace. Is easiest to find and easiest to use. If you're doing something gothic, you probably want to go for black. Black tends to be a little bit harder to find, although I'm finding that I'm seeing it more and more in fabric stores these days, which is awesome. And cream for classic. Or the classic in particular, and sometimes gothic, can really be done without lace. You know, any of them can really be done without lace if you try. But classic focuses a lot more on things like pin tucks and the braided trim that I talked about earlier and stuff like that. It's especially nice because it is harder to find cream lace, I think, just out and about at your regular fabric store. So, yeah, I think that's just about it. I think I covered most trim types. There's other sorts of processes you can do to decorate your fabric. Appliques are, well, they used to be a lot more common in Lolita, but they are still totally acceptable. You can get the iron-on kind, or you can get, you can like make them yourself. You can do fabric paint if you want, or stenciling, or getting custom printed fabric from places like Spoonflower or Fabric on Demand, I think it's called. So there's a pretty wide range of options, and if anybody has any specific questions about types of lace, or, you know, where to buy fabric, or anything like that, feel free to ask me in the comments, and I should be getting that skirt tutorial up in the next week or so, depending on how busy I am, so look forward to that. Okay, bye guys!